So right now it is like pouring rain. So I was actually planning on going and getting a nice breakfast, but it is dumping. So I figured, you know what? I'll do this while the storm passes. And even you might even see in the background Luke running around. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's frisky. I think the thunderstorm. But anyway, so I'm jumping on here to do this. And coming into this today, the section is rejection and loss, and we're in it's like he's like doing his little like ASMR podcast behind me with his little noises. It's really cute. So for extra soothing, I'm wondering what he's oh, it's so cool. Anyway, sorry. Um it's Look, you could just scamper off. Um, okay, yeah, rejection and loss. And so as a reminder for orientation purposes, we're on page 172, and we're in the fourth hub talking about the interruptions and stressors to our capacity for love. But, really, like, I don't really use the word love that much as, in the book, actually, specifically because I think love is a term that, it's really, ephemeral in a sense, and even what it means is one of those things. It's like, well, when you feel it, and what I really tried to do here was really ground things in practical application. So rejection and loss as an interruption and stressor impacting our like ability to connect, and even to as a result to feel belonging. And I would say, like, love in the context of sort of how I position it is, the foundation is showing up. It's like the things that we show up for consistently. That's like the demonstration of devotion and love. And that within that showing up, that there's a flowing intake, outtake, like with like the heart and our breathing is like the good kind of like example of this, which is something that's always been throughout our entire life, has been consistently showing up for us, and that it involves an intake and an outtake. And that so interruptions and stressors in this particular hub make receiving difficult, or for some folks they make giving difficult. Both. Receiving seems to be very common. Even showing up, like believing perfectionism, believing that, if anyone saw the things about us that, part of the fourth hub is like, what do we have to hide to belong? And it's kind of, it like really turns into like a thing in the fourth hub, an interrupting factor, when we believe that we need to show up as perfect. And that idea of having all the answers, of being perfect, of showing up like, versus just showing up in earnest in the best way that we can and the way that we know is possible. And that our presence in its imperfection is wonderful, is a thing, yeah. Yeah. So yesterday I read Scorn, and then I put it on private, specifically because when I was reading it, kind of the state of mind I was in, was, really personal, and there's aspects of the section itself that so as a side note, one of the things that I'm noticing about this particular hub is that the work I'm currently doing in it, my own process, is really showing me how, like, some of these notions are still, like, kind of in a place in their development, and it's less satisfying to read them, to be honest, because they're not cohesive. I read them and and it seems like it's kinda like there's something coming into focus, so as a result of that, like, reading it is a little kinda like, "Huh?" Which is fine. Back to the notion of perfectionism. I really it's I really don't look at this as something where I feel that the end result would be to, like, steer this into being perfect. It's not my end game here. But there's a couple quotes out of the scorn section that I kinda wanna pull forward, and actually one I'm gonna read, which is the Sherry Huber quote, which is, "If a voice is not speaking compassionately to you, it has nothing worthwhile to tell you. Everything you need to know will come to you in compassion." Hmm. And even that as a meditation of contemplation for, like, if that's something that doesn't sound true, is like that's it's kinda like, I guess, almost like a cone, so to speak, where it's like to just look into that notion and understand that it's like, if there's part of you that feels like there are things that are supposed to be said to you with cruelty, there are things that only get through if they're cruel or demeaning or critical or whatever. If a voice is not speaking compassionately to you, it has nothing worthwhile to tell you. Everything you need to know will come to you in compassion. And so another turn another view on that is that when things are being said to you, with aggression, with abuse, with criticism, it is the adaptation. It's the adaptation of the person that is directing itself at you. So it's like, victims of victims, like reflections of reflections, that is it's one way to tell. And it's one way, especially as, like, in this practice, as we grow in it, our ability to, like, even as an extension of our own inner, condition, I guess I could say, able to see other people, who are highly adapted, and instead of being very highly reactive to them, like our own adaptation. Eckhart Tolle called this the pain body, which is this, like, entity within you that's activated by pain, and that when someone else is in pain, like, your pain surges and reacts to that and becomes incredible, and, like, we're taken into a place of unconsciousness. As, this being that, it's like that being said another way is that type of unconsciousness and that type of, the even that inclination to find people that are critical to be more credible is an adaptation, you know? And the thing is, and, the point of, nothing worthwhile to tell you is that it's kind of like, even if there is something valuable in the information contained, um it's like passing somebody, like, a seed that's in a capsule of poison. Like, it's not the delivery, as we'll get into in communication, the delivery, like, the words are, like, less than 20% of a communication. and the tone and the, like, physicality of what a message is are, like, over or, like, 83%. So when someone is, like so it's like if the words are delivered, like 17% in a shell of, whatever. That's one way to look at it, I guess. Anyway, it is raining. I mean, it is pouring right now. Yeah, and I wasn't really planning on doing this, so I'm definitely not I'm a little fractured. I'm also a little, like, um and this is also, to me, feels like a good reason to continue doing these as, like, a consistent practice of showing up to do this on a regular basis. Um, in a way is almost like a form. I don't know that I'll ever look back on it, but it's like it's kind of a sense of documentation for what it's like to be going through this practice and, like, presenting outwardly. Um, yeah. Oh my god. If you could hear, it's literally it sounds like just like sheets of water. It's kinda nice though, it's like feels cozy to be inside when it's raining like this, but I'm also looking forward to having some breakfast. So, I'm gonna start reading this, um, Rejection and Loss, and then kinda we'll see what happens. So, yes, here we go. Okay. So, rejection and loss. Rejection so rejection, loss, rejection. Rejection, loss, betrayal, abandonment, and death are common and highly affecting interruptions in the fourth hub. Children can't help but love, and the size of the hurt of early loss and rejection relative to tiny bodies can be overwhelming, which can lead to immense grief getting perceived and internalized as personal shortcomings that can feel life-threatening within the support without the support and tools to process it. Mhm. When we experience rejection as adults, these early pathways of overwhelming and unresolved loss can be activated by seemingly simple events. A simple loss or rejection, such as losing a social media follower or a friend not immediately returning a text message, can feel perplexingly amplified. Mm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's just, yeah, I honestly, there's a couple of things rising. Nothing is strong enough for me to say it, so I won't. So, children become disconnected from both inner and outer reality when they silence and distrust their true selves. The emotions are massive, and without support to help understand them, children will be engulfed and may rely on coping mechanisms of imagining themselves capable, which can involve fantasy and even deception. This can also become part of the hidden self that benefits from the process of conscious reclamation. Yeah, I mean, I will say it's really hard to go back to that part of ourself. Is it's really sad. Yeah. But it is, I mean, that, yeah, yeah. I don't know, yeah, I just don't feel like it's funny because things are kind of arising as I'm reading this, and nothing really feels like it should be said. It's like I'm like, "Mm," and then it's kinda like, "Mm." Um, yeah, because I think a lot of this, and I've been thinking about this lately too, is that a lot of this is about your like what resonates for you, and being able to draw that forward, and finding that in your own process. Yeah. Yeah, and being kind to it. So, for young children, the experience of divorce creates complex dynamics with feelings of betrayal and abandonment that are confusing. Young children are only beginning to understand that people around them have lives that are separate from theirs. Kids take personal responsibility for loss because of their developmentally appropriate inability to comprehend the inner lives of others. Altruism emerges in this hub, but sympathy depends on our internal experience database, which will never contain the full complexity of every human experience. See Chapter 9. Initial sympathy connects us with experiences like our own, but if we continue to mature, which everyone doesn't actually in this, this growth evolves to incorporate curiosity, becoming compassion for the unfamiliar lived experiences of others. Compassion and curiosity allow us to believe people and to respect experiences that are foreign to our own. Yeah, I mean, this might be as good a time as any to mention that, with the first, second, third, fourth hub, it's going to be pretty universal that these get sort of shaped and developed. But as we travel up further, some folks, because the needs in these hubs are absolutely, the hunger for belonging and safety is so strong that when we get up to the next hub, the fifth hub, which is like expression and communication, that gets contorted into something that is an expression of like kind of like the hope of what a person needs to be to belong. And even and we get into deception is the shadow in that hub, which is like the take on it here is really different than like lies are bad, because lies are pervasive. And if we, instead of looking at it as like a lie is bad, the truth is good, is looking at why a lie would be told. And that's usually in protection, so we don't feel safe. It's, if we lie about ourselves, it might mean that we don't feel like who we are as we stand is good enough. So it's about worth, it's about safety. I mean, that like, so the notion of deception as an adaptation rather than being moralized and turned into yet another thing that it's like you're doing wrong, but you had like that, but has been used as a way to survive initial early conditions of life. Um, like there's things that are really popular to say, like, I hate liars, right? But there's so much deception just in our everyday lives. I mean, we hide parts of ourselves from ourselves. I mean, it's part of what we're revealing here is like, so I guess like lies are bad or whatever, but it's like the thing about like, and you'll notice the shaming of these qualities like is particularly effective in keeping people like sort of easy to control. Because even if you were to look at the nuance of deception and lying and realize that the parts of ourselves that we hide to belong, like that's a deception. Deception is hiding something, even if we're hiding it from ourselves. And then, when we get into the sixth hub, it's delusion. And in there we get biases. We get believe, like things that we, project that we believe to be true as a way um, to survive. To survive. I mean, this is the thing. I think that, um, yeah, like using imagination, like imagination is a way to, like, it's really raining hard right now. Imagination is another way to survive heartbreaking conditions of life, you know, um, even to imagine qualities in relationships with people, like to imagine, to project onto people things that they're not actually doing because you need it so badly. And instead of the vilification of that being, just another way to like really feel shame and also make it very difficult to approach the reconciliation and the reclamation, and hence the ability to experience greater freedom and greater aliveness and more sense of love. Um, the moralizing and shaming of things is like a really effective way of keeping. Now, and look, and the thing is, we are accountable. Like, this isn't just like a free for all. It's like, yes, there is just, and we'll get more into it. Like, there is the part of this that is like, there's accountability, but as long as these are things that are these like are qualities or behaviors that are considered indicators of a person's innate badness, um, then we're going to hide them from ourselves and we're not going to take responsibility for them. We're going to be defensive about them. That's going to create defensiveness. Because if being a liar is an absolute bad thing, if being deceptive is absolutely bad, it's really going to be hard to really examine our own relationship with using deception, about like why we would and what led us there. If we fundamentally do not feel worthy, who presenting ourselves, like very fourth hub, presenting ourselves honestly is just absolutely not possible. It's too much of a vulnerability. It's too much of a I'd call it like a risk, so you've got like, and then you've really got like discern, like thought, like being able to remain flexible in thought. So it's like in the fifth, sixth, and seventh hub, what we are in is the fourth hub. And I think that the thing is like the pain, because the first, second, third, fourth, they're all going to get formed somehow. And the hunger and the underdevelopment of them can really affect our ability to ascend. So even when we're thinking, when we go in chapter 12 with the descending pathway, part of why we're doing the actualization pathway is that, people are like, I want to have better ideas. I want to be like smarter, because you actually get smarter. You get more creative, you get smarter, you get more articulate, like the thing is, the lower four hubs for many people feel like really unsexy and kind of unknown and uninteresting, where it's like, oh, physical safety and trust. It's like, but, like, I think I'm good, and then, emotions and feeling, like enhancing the capacity to feel. And then, in the second hub, and then the third hub is our power and our individuation, and our relationship with that. And then, here we kind of tie it all together in a sense of in the fourth hub, which is how this relates to our connections with other people and our belonging, and even our relationship with ourselves. not even it like and our relationship with ourselves. And so understandably, in each of these hubs, there is kind of the word that came to mind is conservation. It's not the right word, but that when it is not like any kind of adaptation that's like really, and this is one of the things where the discharge is like so kind of mind blowing, is that like when there's a release of the hold in it or even expansion in capacity, it's like it just makes a more budget available, so to speak. And that kind of budget seems to travel upwards with people, and move into creating kind of more energy in the other hubs. As I've seen and experienced, but seen, it's actually, for whatever reason, watching it happen with other people has really been like, yeah, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I can see it better in other people. But anyway, okay, I'm going to read a little bit more. So, psychologist and researcher John Gottman has done extensive work on divorce prediction and marital stability for over 4 decades, and he can predict the future success of a marriage by 83% accuracy by how a couple communicates. So, I don't know if that's either written really or I'm reading it weird, but basically John Gottman is a researcher, academic psychologist, who can predict by watching a couple communicate um, the probability of their divorce with an 80% accuracy. There, that's even better. Oh, that was better. So Gottman identifies the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse for a marriage. Criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and the most revealing of all, contempt. So, contempt is a pattern of attitudes and behavior displaying characteristics of disgust and irritation. Words of contempt are his ultimate determination of a marriage's impending failure. Gottman observes the 4 horsemen attributes within marriages. But what about when we express them in our relationship with ourselves? What happens when the voice of contempt is coming from inside? Perhaps we shake our head as we scorn ourselves for being forgetful or for making a mistake while distracted. You're such an idiot. We may mutter. If we did this to a spouse, Gottman would predict divorce. Yeah. So criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. And as far as I'm going to just repeat myself here with this, is that these are adaptation behaviors. Back to the thing is, if a voice is not speaking compassionately to you, it is nothing worthwhile to tell you. Everything you need to know will come to you in compassion. Now, notice how absolutely everything an adaptation can like actually form a justification and reality around everything, including this, because if we're critical, if we're defensive, if we stonewall, or if we exhibit contempt, this kind of final like notion of being like, well, see, I'm awful. Um, and this is where we soften. This is where we soften. And we see these as adaptations to survive conditions where we had no context, we had no coaching, we had no formal development. And so we kind of became what we could grab for and what naturally arose and was effective. These are effective protections. They're so effective. I mean, there's no denying that these are effective protections. That criticism creates a protection. Defensiveness creates protection. Stonewalling creates protection. Contempt. All of these things create protection. And if we do not trust love, if we do not feel our inherent lovability, that the combination of protecting the people we care about and protecting ourselves winds up creating this like battleground. And people have asked me, they've asked me about, well, how do I stop doing it to other people? And it's not how do you stop doing it to other people, it's how do you stop doing it to yourself? When you stop doing it to yourself, you stop doing it to other people. And this is something also in terms of like, I'd say like careful compassion about people who are people's behavior is realizing like they're showing you what it's like inside of them. Like there's nobody who's being like critical, defensive, you know, disgusted or, like, ugh, irritated. There's nobody that's doing that and inside is just like a fucking joy. Like it's inside, it's just this like garden of earthly pleasures, and outside is like this, like flamethrower. I mean, like what you're getting is not an objective reality. You're getting a very subjective expression of a person's inner state. So, what's the importance of this is that it's our relationship with ourself. That's why this orientation is not about like how do you solve your relationships with other people. This is about how do we look inside ourselves and find these things and really like soften and dissolve our notion of what they are, that they're things to be shameful. It's like moral issues, this stuff where it's like, it's like, okay, like we will take responsibility, we will take accountability, but that will be possible. That will actually be possible when we are able to accept these things about ourselves. It's like to take accountability for something that we can't even allow ourselves to fully like understand. It's interesting. Like like in talk therapy, this notion is externalized often, which is to look to abusers or people, abusers, people who've caused harm, and to really look at like why did they do that, and to find the compassion for the reason that they did it. and then hold them accountable. So that's that balance of, like, to soften and then, like, hold the accountability. I mean, that would be a good therapist. There's plenty that are not great. Um, but here's what I'm saying, here is that we're doing this internally. We're forgiving. I guess, I've really intentionally not used forgiveness in here as an external thing. And it's just occurring to me right now, forgiveness is something, it's like meme worthy. People are like, forgive and set yourself free. And I just was like, oof, I don't know about that. Like, and so in the fourth hub, this is where that would have belonged, forgiveness, because it's about our relationships. Um, And the idea of forgiveness and the nuances within it, I honestly I think I was like, "Oof, I don't love forgiveness," because this idea of, like, almost relieving others of accountability. But I do see forgiveness as, like, our forgiveness of ourselves. All these things, it's like, "Oh, so disgusting. I did terrible things to people when I was, in a point of, like, distress and rage and like, I lied to people, I deceived people, I stole, I mean, it's like these things, and it's like when they're kind of, like, locked away is like, I can't even look at that. There's just nothing that isn't human. There's nothing that isn't, and it's kind of like it festers. It's like out of light, without, like a wet, dark. So, I guess one of the analogies that I think it's earlier in the book is that when we take, it's like if you've leftovers and you put them in the refrigerator and they get pushed back to the back of the refrigerator, um, you know, and forgotten about, when they come back out later, it's something else. That is not what you first put in there. It's not what you first put in there. One of the analogies, Anodea Judith uses, which is kinda like in that same vein, is like if you go to work, you bring your lunch, and you forget about it, and you kind of put it in a drawer. And it's long, and then on a Friday, and then they come back after a long holiday weekend, it's like, "Something doesn't smell great here." And this is, I mean, like, but the thing is it's just like a rotten sandwich. It's not like some kind of thing where it's like, it's like you forgot something. Like, whoops, like, it really, it's like, yeah, it's just the thing about the idea that we don't wanna look at these things, and they're hard to look at because of what we've come to believe about them. But back to what we're doing here is that, the tangle, which is these reflexes have these associated belief systems, and that has formed our notion of what reality is. And then we project that into the world. The world responds accordingly, and the tangle gets tightened just even a little bit. And so even if we can just undo one, create just a little bit more freedom, a little bit more movement in the tangle, can see that it's malleable. Freedom is possible. I coming into this morning too, I was thinking about, like, why would somebody do this, right? I mean, there's just like these notions of self-help, and it's like savior, it's like a lot of them are really positioned around pretty punishing notions of, like, the idea that it's like to become your best self. It's like be your best self kind of thing. It's like a way of acknowledging that telling somebody to be better is, like, sort of not really great, but still telling them to be better. Like, it really, and just that a lot is, like, hyper productivity. It's really just, like, how to become a more productive person, and even a lot of misdirection about what to want. There's a lot about, like, wanting money, and money is absolutely abstract. Like, what money represents. It's like, I wanna have a lot of money, like, where people have, I see, it's like on social media, and my dysfunctional love of TikTok at the moment, um, my my pacifier of choice is there's a lot of, like, these kids, like 20s, 30s who are like abundance, like money manifestations, money, and it's such a like there's such an opportunity for refinement about what it is that money is going to solve for. And as long as it's like kind of like, yeah, but money is like it's like, what is it going to solve for, and connecting to that. It's like for me, it's freedom, it's the ability to be generous, it's the ability to do this. Um yeah, and in other times in my life, and also to have a certain level of stability. But the thing is like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing TPM? It's really that it's like, if you have trust in your first hub, if you have trust in yourself, if you have the inherent trust in your capability and ability to take care of yourself. And that trust in also something that's a little bit more ephemeral, which is like, you will find a way, you will find a way, you will find a way. And that is related to other people, and the notion that people are bad is really like very interrupting to that. People are good. Like, people are inherent, it's like the amount of space the notion of bad people take up is disproportionate to the amount of space they actually take up in the real world. It's kind of like how our brains are like kind of focus on this, like that badness. It's like, you look at the crime app, was it? I forget the name of it. And it'll tell you like one crime that's happening, in your area. And you think about like the number of people and like humanness, and there's no crime there. It's just like the statistical significance. And then we're talking about like to feel, to expand the ability to like feel good things, to feel bad things, not be overwhelmed by it, to have pleasure, to be able to really enjoy things, not conceptually, but to be in the moment and taste and enjoy and feel your body and feel the sense of like tasting something and relaxing in a moment and being with people that are wonderful and surrounded by life. Like, to be able to have that, to be able to feel your own power. Feel it without it needing to be like power over someone else or be validated by power, to feel that. Mm, to feel the absolute extraordinariness of your individualism, and not have it be co-opted by some idea that your individuality is egoism. It's a unique, brilliant expression of God. I mean, to like even take it into like a notion of divinity and God, that God could potentially, like this notion of creation, using God as like creation, could be so brilliant that it creates these billions of extraordinary phenomenon, billions of them, each like complex, but also locks into this shared humanity. I mean, it's kind of extraordinary thing. Um, yeah, so it's like, why do we do this? Why are we doing this? Because there's a chance to be more alive. It's what I'm doing it for. To feel more free, to feel more alive, to feel more you. And the idea that it's like, if you just do this, you're gonna like be better, but you already are. You already are. You already are. You already are. It's these adaptations that just need to be incorporated. It's not even like, it's like softened, dissolved, and also incorporated, because they also have like a part, they're just also part of us. So there's that. So, okay. We did it. We did it. We did it. We did it. Yeah. So it is still raining really hard. So I guess I'm going to have to just umbrella myself to go get some food. But anyhow, I am sending you lots of love. And once again, I really, truly appreciate you. Like in this, I really, how much it matters that we're in this together. Yeah. And I really appreciate all interaction, all comments, all likes, everything, everything. It's like, I love it. I love it. I love seeing them. So, all right. Okay. So I will see you here when we're gone, and then we're gone. Soft gone. All right. I'll see you next time. Sending you lots of love. Appreciate you. Bye.